Hey y'all. So if you are a Black mom and you want to take kid-free vacations, that's trips by yourself, trips with your girlfriends, or even trips with your partner, this is the video for you. I am doing another interview in my kid-free vacation series, and I'm really excited about this one because I'm talking to an international mama, right? We've had a lot of mamas from the United States. We're talking to an international mama all the way from Uganda. And we're going to be talking about how can you take kid-free vacations when you are a mother of a toddler, a wife, and running a business full time. Okay. This means a full plate, ladies. Okay. If you have a full plate, come on in the room. This is the video for you. So we're going to welcome Lynett Nakamanya. Welcome, Lynett.
Excited to share more about traveling around Africa for mothers and how best they can do it with ease, because I know it's not the easiest thing to do. I know other parts of Europe are easier to navigate, but Africa becomes tricky. And since I handle 3 parts, I do the Victoria Falls area, which is Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana. I do Uganda, Tanzania, and Zanzibar. So I believe I can share some information to ease your trip.
I love it. Well, and you know what? I'm really excited about this because being able to hear from someone who plans travel about ways to better plan travel, especially wellness travel for moms, I think is going to be really important with regard to like tips, tricks, ways to, just make it easier, especially for women who already have a lot to do. Right. So can you share a little bit about your life as a mom? Like, are you married, single, how many children you have, the sex of your children, those type of things?
I am married. I'm a newly married person, I like to say, because we're just 3 years married. And then I have a 2-year-old son. Yeah. Toddler, still joking around, making a mess, but it's a beautiful experience.
Yeah, I know that life because I also have a 2-year-old. And I hear boys are very bit different than girls, but these girls are doing the most as well. Okay.
4 months. I remember, I think I was just wiping and he was throwing around his fingers, his hands. So I think my cheek, my face was near him, and he's like, his hand fell on my cheek. It felt like an actual slap at 4
Oh Lord.
months. I was like,
Wow.
oh, wow. So yeah.
Welcome to motherhood.
Yes.
Okay, so like what kinds of kid-free vacations have you taken? And why is taking vacations, without your children important for you?
First of all, it's very important for mothers to know that their children are happier when the mothers are happy. Even I myself, I see it. There are times when I'm really stressed and I see the way I act around my child. I'm like, oh, maybe, when I go and reflect, I'm like, oh, maybe I didn't act so well because I was annoyed. So I have to reduce on my being annoyed or stressed or frustrated. As a mother, becoming a mother made me realize it's hard to find time alone as a woman to relax. Like the moment you become a mother or even a wife, society does not give you the opportunity to take a break. You're expected to work every single day, taking care of your children, your husband, cooking, cleaning, washing, arranging, even in the festive season, during Easter holiday, you're in the kitchen, you're working back to back, you're doing this and that. So that's when my travel even was highly enhanced, because I was like, if you go out to a resort for a wellness trip, you go to relax. It helps you to rejuvenate, be happier. Because when you're happier, you show up better in your children's life. You'll be a better wife. You'll be a more relaxed person. But then also taking children-free trips helps you rediscover yourself. Sometimes when you become a mom, or as I did, I remember my first year of being a mom, because I've been in the tourism industry the last 8 years. My first year of being a mom, I didn't travel at all. I literally told my husband, I'm not traveling ever again because of my child. And he was like, no, you're going back. And I was like, no, I'm not. I literally even went back to school to start something totally different, because I was like, never traveling again. And very many women go through that. Some stay in that space longer. Luckily for me, I didn't stay in longer. By the time the child was 10 months, I was okay, now back, revamping my website, doing my trips. By the time it was 1.5, I was, out of the country on more trips around the world. But it shows you that, and that resolution came to mind when I took a 2 days break away when my child was 7 months and he had started feeding. Because when he began eating food, he loved it, so he would now at least take some days without having mommy around. And that's when I was like, wow, I've missed this. I've missed the road. I've missed the world out here. I've missed travel. So that's when my love now was rekindled. Otherwise, I was going to stay in this facade of, oh my God, I can't leave my child. And I would have thrown my career away. And very many women face that roller coaster because when you give life to a child, when you give life, to a being, it changes. Everything changes. And it's very important for women to give themselves some rest and take a break.
Yeah, I can relate to all of that. Okay. Like literally the whole story, Lynett, I can relate to because I also traveled significantly before I had children. And then interestingly enough, like I had my daughter right before the pandemic. So not only was I stuck in, loss of identity, feeling like, I knew how to be her mother more than I knew how to be myself.
Yes.
Right. And then here comes the pandemic. So given that travel is a huge part of my life, now the whole world has shut down. So I don't even have access to it if I wanted to. And I have no idea when it's coming back. Right. So similar to you, I definitely was rethinking like, okay, so now what am I going to do? Because obviously it's not going to be this. So what are the other options? But also internally feeling like someone had put a glass of water on my internal light. Because to me, travel is not just what I do, it's who I am. And it's a part of the way I transform and become and level up my life. So to not be able to have access to it was really defeating, right? Like I found myself in a space of depression. I found myself in a space of sadness, right? In thinking about not being able to do this. So what I'm wondering is like for you, how did you get to the other side of that? Like what tools did you use? Was it someone like your husband? Like how did you move from the space of like, I'm no longer doing this to no, I am gonna figure it out?
Like I said, I took actually almost a full year, because when I got pregnant, I literally stopped working because I didn't want to move, and then I was on bed rest for some months. So when I had my son, I went back to school to do a course because I knew in my mind that I was not going to travel ever again. But my partner kept encouraging me slowly, and I think as the baby grew, and now by the time he was 6 months, he didn't depend on me because I breastfed him strictly for 6 months exclusively. So that had also like controlled how far I would move if I was not going to move with him. By 1 year, he got himself off the breast milk. He didn't want it anymore. He was eating well, feeding well. So slowly by slowly, but of course with my husband's persistence, he was like, you revamp your website. And he funded it. He was like, I'll fund your website. I'll fund this because I had my money. But I was just stubborn. I was like, no, I don't want. I don't have even money. So like, I'll fund it. I'm like, okay. And then I want to go. I don't have money. It was in the next country. He was like, I'll fund it. And how much? He funds it. So and as I started, opportunities started coming. More clients started coming, and I'm like, wow, yes, I've missed this. I love this. What was I thinking? Yeah, but not many women get that opportunity.
Yeah.
For someone to push them back out there. And that's where soul searching or even solo travel comes in. Because the moment my child became independent, I feel when he was not feeding on me and would spend a day two without me and would be okay, eating, happy, it showed me that I could also go out there, do my best and come back,
Right.
and we'll be okay. And also the support system, because family is around, and if you have family, it's very important to take advantage of that opportunity. So I always secure that, okay, maybe I took him to my sister. Because when I was going for the expo in the next country, he had just made 1 year, And like and then I left him with my sister because she was a toddler. So I knew he was in good hands. So that gave me a bit of peace of mind. And now, and the more I leave him with my mom, she loves him, she adores him. So even when I'm on the road, I don't feel as bad because that mom guilt is still there as it would be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that is a very poignant thing to talk about, is finding ways to make your child more independent, right? And allow yourself to lean into your support system, right? I call it activating your tribe, like purposely asking for help, and then also intentionally trusting your tribe, right? Because sometimes we will have the help, but we will feel bad about asking for it because of the way, being a good mom is portrayed to us. And also, if we do ask for the help, sometimes, I've seen moms who go on the trip and worry the whole trip because they haven't decided to trust that their child is in good hands, right? That they're okay, that they're well taken care of, that there are other people in their life who can love and take care of their child at the same level that they do, right? And so that is really an intentional act that you did to be like, oh, okay, I know that if he's with my sister, he is good, right? If he's with my mother, he's fine. Like, I don't have to worry about it. I can just fully, luxuriate in my free time, right? And just focus on me and my wellness and my mental during this time, right? And what I would say is for the mom guilt piece for you, how do you handle mom guilt, right? Like I always say mom guilt is just a sign that you're a mom. Like, that does not mean that anything has gone wrong. It is just a sign that you love your kids and that you have a high standard of mothering, right? But it's not a red flag. Like, don't expect, if you're a mother, you should expect to have it, right? And I think for me, normalizing mom guilt has helped me to overcome it significantly, because when it comes up, I'm just like, oh yeah, of course, yeah. It's just like a commercial on the radio. Like, it's just like, oh, it's a commercial. I'm just wait till it's over. Okay, then I'm gonna keep moving. Right. So how do you handle that? Like, how do you continue to move and take action in the presence of mom guilt?
I choose to trust the people that I leave my child with. Because even when I'm around and I'm not going for holiday because I am a full-time worker, or I run the business full-time, like even right now, it's 8 p.m. in Uganda, and we just had dinner. I left him because we were still playing. I was like, should I throw him in bed? But it's too early, he will not sleep. So he's still with the nanny. And I'm here on the podcast. He's doing a good job. And it's also important to know that no one is perfect.
Yes.
So you have to trust the people you leave your child with. I have things I don't agree with my sister that she does. I have things I don't agree with my mom that she does. But if I leave my child in their hands, I know he will be okay. And it's important to put it in the back of your mind that he is okay. If you have a bit of worry, you can call in, and it gets better, I think, as the child grows older. Because when he was so young, it was too much. But as he grows, I know he's a bit more independent. He can communicate. Right now, he just made two, but when he's hungry, he knows how to climb on a chair, open the fridge, pick what he wants. And we always have some fruits in the fridge just in case he's thirsty to chew on and what. So that alone shows me, like, gives you more confidence that, okay, if the person is not taking so much care, at least he might be able to pick something and eat. So it's important to trust the people you leave your child with. And also, like you say, normalize the mom guilt because it's there and it's love for your child. So you acknowledge the love, but then you also trust the child.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, because you're married, I want to know more about like what is the, for instance, like how do you enlist, or do you even have to enlist your husband into supporting you traveling alone? Like I have had conversations with my husband. There are mom friends that I have who have had their husband say, it's not safe for you to be out there by yourself, right? Or, I would like to be with you as well to take a break, right? Or, whatever it is, right? So, how do you set expectations for him? And then how do you also prepare him or help him to be able to parent alone in your absence?
Okay, he doesn't parent alone in my absence. He does it when I'm not around. I take the child to my mom's. So I think that also cuts him a bit of slack. He also gets to
Okay, so he
relax
gets a
and
break too.
the club. No one telling him, where are you? When are you coming back home? So it cuts him a bit of slack too. But there is, of course, my husband likes the fact that I travel. He likes my industry. And like I emphasize, he pushed me to come back in the industry. But of course, there's need for communication. So I remember there's a trip I went to and my phone blacked out for almost 1.5 days. He was not amused, because we were like, I was so worried. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to talk to. Need to communicate. And of course, personally, I think I would love to travel with him more, but because of work, we can't travel at the same time. Yeah. So that's how the dynamics have been for me because he loves to travel. I love to travel. So if I'm going, he's like, oh, amazing. Please go. If we can go together, let's go. But because my work is in the tourism industry, so literally I travel for work most times.
Yeah.
I travel for wellness, but most times I'm traveling to take clients. So I'm literally working, and he understands that I'm working, and he respects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That is convenient because it is a part of your lifestyle, similar to me. Like I travel for work and for pleasure. And I think what you shared is important because sometimes there are married women who feel tied to staying because maybe their husband also wants to break, or he doesn't feel comfortable with parenting alone. But what you're saying is if he's not comfortable, or if he also wants to break, you have to leverage your other tribe, right? It's important to have other people who can support you as well. I remember having a conversation with someone and her saying, we just don't have anybody, right? We just don't have anybody other than us. And so my question was, okay, so if if your husband was sick and he had to go to the hospital and you had to drive him there and y'all were in the ambulance and you could not take your children with you, what would you do with them? And she was like, I would take them to my sister's house. And I was like, okay, so take them to your sister's house. Right? Because it shouldn't only be in that dire situation that you feel comfortable taking them there. Right? You also have to allow yourself to be comfortable with taking them there when you need a break. Right? And just asking for help, So, and leveraging and leaning into your tribe in those times too.
Yeah, but also I believe because of the world, how life is moving right now, there is so much independence that it has broken the community bond. You have not cultivated a relationship of your sister, maybe with the children. You're thinking of leaving them there for a holiday is impossible. But if you take them there for a weekend, if it's Auntie Julie, they like Auntie Julie. If you're going for a holiday, they'll be like, yeah, let me go and stay with Auntie Julie. But if they don't, they hardly know her name. They hardly know if she's smiling or not. There is no relationship whatsoever, which is very common today. It's hard to take your children there because you have a culture, which I think can be broken, but we have to invest in that tribe.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Like it's important to build the relationship before you need it. Yes. Right? Build it before you need it. And And I think that happens from allowing yourself to ask for help more often, right? Being more vulnerable, sharing what's going on, not just the good things and how great the grades are and how all the stages that he's walking now and he's talking now, like share all the things, right? The reality of the situation, and allow yourself to be vulnerable with the people who love you and also, love your child, so that you can start building that relationship ahead of time, right? Now your kid is pretty young, right? Mine are too. My oldest one is she's only 4, but you would think she was 14. It's hilarious to me. Like, so for you, do you feel the need, or have you had to like explain to your son that you're leaving, right? How do you feel like he feels about you leaving, and how do you explain to him being gone or comfort him about you being gone?
Yeah, my son doesn't talk so much, but he understands everything. You know, you could tell him, go bring my shoes, go bring the car, take this here, take this there, do not do that. So I communicate with him. I've also realized the more I talk to him, the more he listens, because sometimes like if I spend the whole day at home and we have become cozy, if I just even stepping out to pick something from the shop, he will wait like, wow! Like, take me with you. Just 5 minutes, I'm going to be back. Please wait for me, okay? He kind of still complains, but he's a bit more calm. So usually when I'm traveling, because he usually knows if I'm not going to be around, because they're saying, Mommy has taken me all my belongings to Jaja's place. So, and we love Jaja's place because there's a lot of spoiling and little room. So I tell him, bye-bye, I'll be back. And he says, yeah. Now he likes it. He loves Jaja's place.
I like that. Sounds like, you really have created the dynamic where going to the place that he's going is fun for him too. So it's like you're going on your trip, but he also feels like he's going on and experiencing a trip on his own. So it's like, okay, see you. I'm going to have fun too. Like,
yeah, he loves it. It's like Jaja just spoils him. He sits down and feeds himself, but when he's at Jaja's, like she's feeding him with a spoon, he's sleeping on his lap, and they just carry, like they're cutting bananas for him in pieces. He at home, you just hand him the banana, he peels it, takes the peeling to the dustbin and eats. There it's being sliced up for him. And he's just
living his best life over there. Okay.
Living his candy. I buy him biscuits. I don't give him any of those things because I'm a bit strict. There, when he complains, they say, "Go and bring baby biscuits." Huh?
Yes. So I want to talk about like the entrepreneurship piece, right? I think what is unique is, and I've only been a full-time entrepreneur for almost a year. I worked for 20 years before that. And honey, this is a whole different lifestyle. Okay. Like, so I am interested to know like how, I know you travel for work. So I think that it's cool that you've incorporated it into your actual business so that you get to do what you're passionate about. But when you're not traveling for work, how are you setting up, systems in either your life or specifically in your business to be able to step away and, do this?
I make sure that I work with particular individuals. So all the guys on my trips are not new people. Like I have staff, full-time staff, the guides that I give to my different clients when they come. And I go on trips usually when they're big trips. Like if it's a group of 20 women coming to Uganda for a wellness trip, I will go with them. But if there are 5, 6, I usually just send them with one of my guides. And all my guides, I've worked with them for the last 3, 4 years. So they know how things work, they know the system. I've tried to make things be as systematic as possible. So there's a payment system, there's a system of if the client is coming in 1 week, what do we do? When do we create the WhatsApp for the clients to ease communication? When do they need their guide? When does the guide pick them up? When does the guide talk to me in case of anything? So we give the guide the flexibility to even make decisions on the road. Because that time then I might not be having my phone with me, but you're on the road with clients and you need to make a decision. So being confident in your guide that she's going to do whatever it takes on the road is also very important, because it gives you a bit of peace of mind. Mainly when you're having maybe 3 or 4 groups of clients in the country and they're all small groups, and you're not going to go with any, you're just staying behind to ensure logistics are all well set up and arranged. It's important when you trust your team.
Yeah.
Also, something about entrepreneurship and being a mom, it has taught me to be more ambitious, because right now I'm building generational business. In my mind, I feel when my son is 18, 19, he's going to be driving clients. You know, I'm very playing with it, because I'm planning to build a wellness resort, and I'm like, by the time he's 10, he's going to be doing waitressing at the resort when we have clients, because this is like, even that alone makes me double check, like if I'm dealing with maybe a very complicated client, or I'm really working on a business deal that is taking longer than needed. It reminds me that this is for the long, like this is what your child's future will be dependent on, and that gives you a bit more patience, which is very important in business, you know. But it also makes you more ambitious, because you have to do great things that your child can be proud of and can take over and can also, you know, pass on to the next generation.
What I'm hearing is it's very important to have some standard operating procedures in your business, right? So people know what to do in your absence, and then also have a team that you can trust, right? That's well trained, that can execute and make decisions without your feedback or your input, or, you know, just being able to have them feel empowered to make decisions and handle things without you. And I think in thinking about having a generational business, doing that at the ground level is really important, because otherwise you get trapped in the business, right? Like you very easily become, you know, the bottleneck and the linchpin, that if you're not there, things don't happen or things stop happening, you know. So I think that's a good idea to do, you know, at the beginning of your business, right? Especially as you're having to juggle so many roles, right? As a wife and a mom, and now the business owner and a daughter, and, you know, all of these things, like you got to be able to have support. The theme of this video is support. Okay, y'all, just so you know, we're talking about all things support. I'm seeing a trend here. You know, with regard to being able to make things happen as a mother, you have to get comfortable with leaning into your support,
because there's no way you're going to be able to live your best life if you don't have support, you know. And society has put up a very, very, very ruthless ideology of who a mother needs to be, you know, which is the case.
I always say I found a book that I haven't read yet, but there's a quote in it that talks about how, you know, mothers aren't supposed to be martyrs, they're supposed to be models. And a lot of times society makes us believe that we are supposed to sacrifice ourselves in the name of our children, right? Sacrifice your identity, your health, you know, just everything, right? Sometimes your relationships, your friendships, your everything in the name of your children. And I love that concept of you're actually supposed to be a model of what your children should be aspiring to be, right? When I think about my daughter, and when they become wives and when they become mothers, I want them to feel very comfortable with still being themselves in the midst of all of these other roles, still following their passions, still taking a break when they need it, you know, thinking about their mental health, and, you know, getting the resources and leveraging the resources they need in order to take care of themselves mentally, spiritually, emotionally. That's the way I want them to live, right? I want them to have a supportive husband who allows them to be themselves and even encourages them to put their website up and start their business again. Like, that's what I want for them. So the best way for me to, influence that is to live that out and model what that looks like for them. And so that is really one of the reasons why I've started in this journey, right? Why I've started my channel, why I shifted my business to this, is because it's a redefining of motherhood, right? It's a redefining from what, the TV shows or even previous generations have lived out, right? It's a definition of what it should look like.
In Africa, the African society, initially, old times, it used to encourage or even celebrate women's relaxing, because before we had extended families, so that mother would have a child and she would be given months of just bed rest and feeding her so she can feed the child while she had her mother. Because actually, even right now in Uganda, most time when a girl gives birth, she goes back home for at least the first month to be able to relax, sleeping as the mother takes care of the baby. They just bring the baby to her to breastfeed. Actually, myself, when I had my son, I think the first 3-4 days, I didn't change his clothes. Like, I'll just feed him and hand him over to the people who would change him and do what.
Yes.
So we had a lot of that, and it's currently, unfortunately, fading away. In this whole nuclear family system, independence. But I think it's high time we rejuvenate it, like we bring it back to life, where we bring our family closer. Sometimes as people grow older these days, they distance themselves from their family, from their friends, from home, which then robs them of the opportunity to actually make better use of the community, which they eventually need to grow.
I completely agree. I see that a lot here, right? Especially in the African American community, a lot. Now, thankfully, my mother and my father live with us, and that, I was raised initially by my grandmother when I was young, and then similar to you, I lived with my mother when I was young, but my grandmother was 5 minutes away. Like, it was just right down the street, and I think because of that, it developed me into a certain type of woman, right? And also it allowed them to have consistent support there, right? There was no tear or break in that. And I've seen comments on Instagram where women have just like been like, I don't have anybody here, right, to help me. And I don't think they realize how dangerous that is, right?
It is very dangerous.
That is very dangerous.
And
you live in a city and it's just you, your husband, or you and your husband and your children, and you don't have any support that you can call on. You don't have a friend, you don't have a family member, that is dangerous, because anything could happen. And who's going to be there for your child? Right? So sometimes we wear it as a badge of honor, like, I'm doing it all, it's nobody but me. And it's like, no, that's very dangerous for you and your child, for it to just be you.
And I think mindset, because there's this lady, Shonda Rhimes, the American producer. She said she had that same thing as well, that she would be called for, awards, going to all these ceremonies, and she'd be like, no, I can't go. I have a baby, all the children she adopted. I have little ones, I have this. And she said, no, actually, it's written in her book about a year of saying yes.
Yes, I read that. I love that book.
Yeah, and she was like, it's until she realized that her mother was there, her sisters were there. Oh, and there was this assistant who would take care of the children full time. Like, even her children knew that I can easily reach the assistant faster than I reach mommy.
Yes.
And when she started taking good use of that support system, now she could travel, now she could go for shows, now she could go to the state house, just after her recognizing the value of the support system and actually taking advantage. So I think we all have to, I feel many people say there is no one because they have not thought of someone as someone.
Oh, that's what I want to ask. So I'm interested to know, like, so for instance, in African American culture, so I would say my mother and my grandmother, right? So two generations, there wasn't a whole lot of traveling without your kids, right? Like it's not a norm for people to go away. It is the norm for you to be with them the majority of the time, right? And so in our culture, even the idea sometimes of like taking a break, taking a getaway is new in my generation. Like they're just like, you need a break and you're taking it. Like what's going on here? Um, Although I will say my mother is very supportive of it. Like, but you know, there are other people whose mother or even some people in their family are side eyeing them, like, why are you leaving your child by themselves, right? Do you experience that in Ugandan culture, right? Or is it like, you know, they understand that you need a break, you know, talking about how early in the beginning of your postpartum, how they usually kind of just allow you to take that break, right? So what is your experience in your culture?
It's not so different from what's in your culture. I That's why I love having these conversations, because I find that there's a woman in UK, in the US, having the same experience like me here in Uganda. You know.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, I have been lucky. So my mom was close. Many of the women, because it's the culture that when the woman gives birth, she goes to her home, to her parents' home, at least the first month, to nurse. But that's usually for the first child. The second child, she might not go, but the first child, she most times goes. But because every family is different, I know of a friend who said when she gave birth, her husband told her, "You're not going anywhere, please." You know. So there are also those unique situations. And then also, our society is two-sided. So when the woman gives birth, they will give her the grace to go home. But there are also some parts where some cultures where they still sideline the woman, where they're like, how can you, like, you can't you take care of your own child, you know? Some areas where it's still there. And then also some people whereby even a woman taking a break, you know, because I know of some women who are married and they have full-time 8 to 5 jobs, and they go back home and they have to cook dinner for their husband, you know. So it's, I think, a family issue. Like now, my husband was okay with me going home. My husband is okay with me coming back home from work and finding food cooked already by someone else. Home is clean, and he won't
Mm-hmm.
make a problem out of it. But I know other people whose husbands wouldn't. And I
Mm-hmm.
know other people whose husbands would be like, oh, let's eat out if there is no food. Let's,
Mm-hmm.
order in something. So it can't be one shoe fits all, but majority do definitely encourage the woman to go home so she can have that rest, usually after childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, I'm seeing a growing trend of families whereby when the parents are still there, they encourage the girl to take maybe the children home. Now, some families even encourage their daughters, like if she's newly married, has a job, and just got a baby, they encourage that after the baby is off breast milk, she can take
Mm-hmm.
the baby home to the grandparents if they're not working to help her. Then she can focus on her work a bit more, because even getting like nannies, walk-ins to help you with a child is not very easy these days as was before. But there's that growing support system. So those who have that opportunity take their children home, and when your child is with your parents, maybe you pick them over the weekend. It also helps you, relax more, rest a bit, and then even
Mm-hmm.
work harder in
Mm-hmm.
your different work. Yeah. So times are changing,
Yeah.
some for the better.
It sounds like it's the same dynamic here. Now we don't go. I know my husband's family, they do the same thing as you. Like Zimbabwean culture is also like usually around the end of your pregnancy, you go home to your family in preparation to have your baby, and you end up
Yes.
being there for a while. I remember one of his friends, wife had a baby, and he was like, his friend hadn't even seen the baby yet because he was in South Africa and she was in Zimbabwe with her family. And I was just like, what? Like, this baby's like 4 months old. Like, what is going on? So I have heard of that before. And I love the idea of being able to like just lean on your tribe so heavily, because the beginning stages of motherhood are some of the hardest ones, right? Like it's some of the hardest times. But it's interesting to know. And one of the things that I've learned in my travels, because a lot of the places that I've gone to have been countries in the diaspora. So I love going to Black and brown countries specifically. And I've learned that there are so many similarities between the way we live and the way you live. I always say we are not different from each other. We're different like each other. And that there's like small things, but for the most part, it's the same across the board. A lot of the cultural things have traveled throughout history and made it and are still a part of the fabric of things that we do today. And we don't even know that they're tied to what is done over there, right? Until you go back and you see it and you're like, oh, we do that too. Like, so I've loved that part of traveling to these countries. Okay, so as we wrap up, one of the things I want to talk about is strategies, right? Specifically, like, how do you plan trips, right? What are some of the things that you use to plan trips? I know you actually do it for a living too. What are some strategies specifically for planning when you have a lot on your plate, right? And you don't have time to luxuriate in building itineraries and like doing it more simply. And then also, how do you budget? Like, how do you find ways to have the money to be able to take these trips?
Because I do travel for a living, maybe I can just share tips on how mothers can ease their travel journeys, because it's my job. But developing itineraries is tricky, mainly in Africa, different parts of Africa. First, because of the infrastructure. So it's not very easy to just get to the airport and get a cab or go to the train. There are hardly any trains when you get to the airport. So what I would encourage someone who wants to come and travel and enjoy and relax in Africa, because it gets tricky if you design your itinerary yourself, then it's important to maybe get a guide. I always encourage ladies, if you're coming to Africa, at least get a guide the first 2-3 days. Because some want to be solo and explore the city, explore the townships. But at least before you do that, it would be nice to have at least someone to guide you the first 2-3 days, in case you're doing a solo, exploration. If you want something well curated, it's important to have a tour operator who handles your whole trip. You just sit down with them. You're like, okay, I want to go for a wellness retreat. Maybe I want to go for safari. I want to do chimpanzee tracking, gorilla tracking. I want to be at the beach. I want to be in Zanzibar. I want to do adventure in Victoria Falls. I want to do bungee jumping and zip lining. So when you tell someone that, then they can give you options and price options, and planning really makes it easy when it comes to budgeting for travel. If you plan, like if you say, maybe you say travel in Africa is $3,000, and you plan and you say by the beginning of the year, December, I want to go to Africa. But also because the tickets for travel in Africa, the air tickets are a bit expensive compared to other parts of the world. It's also very important for clients to, I usually encourage mothers to fix things together. So if you're coming to Africa, at least come do 2-3 countries, so at least it's more value for money, because the countries are so packed together, yet all of them are unique. If you come to Uganda, it will be so different, like than Tanzania. If you go to Zanzibar, the culture there is so different from what you find if you're in mainland Tanzania, yet it's the same area code. So I can encourage, if you're coming to Africa, plan for 14 days, 14, 15 days. And traveling in groups also makes the trip way cheaper, by the way. That's a very important tip for women. If you're 5, it's cheaper than if you were 2. The price can go down to almost a difference of $1,000.
Oh,
so
wow.
The more you have the group, the cheaper it gets for travel. Yeah, so traveling in groups makes it safer, makes it fun, because you're meeting and bonding with all these women. But then it's also price friendly. So you get to go to all these different places that, of course, you wouldn't do if you are solo. So you
Mhm.
encourage you to travel in groups, at least 3, 5, to help even out some of the costs which can be shared amongst themselves.
Yeah, I found that to be the same thing too. Like whenever I do trips, when it's groups, it is cheaper, especially because you're paying by room, right? And so usually you can split the cost of the room. Like it's a different, and also you can split the cost of everything, transportation, just everything.
Yes.
Even having guys, like when we usually go, I love to. It's funny because this happened accidentally. So what will end up happening is somehow, whenever I come to an African country, we will have an Uber that we get from the airport, and somehow this Uber becomes our guide for the whole trip. Like they'll be our driver everywhere. Like they always have great personalities. Like it has happened in Ghana, it has happened in South Africa, it has happened. What was the other place? In Zimbabwe. Like we ended up getting a car in Zimbabwe, but like it just ends up happening every time. It happened to me in Costa Rica. So I completely agree. Having a guide is important, especially when you're traveling alone, but even in groups too, because you want to have somebody who knows the lay of the land, and you also want to have somebody who is going to give you the real, right? Like because sometimes people will try to take advantage because they know you're not from there, right? So you want to have somebody that you can trust is going to be in integrity with regard to the services that you're getting and the services that they're providing to you as well. When I think about budgeting for travel, like for me, it's one of the first things that I budget for. Like, I actually have a guide that I created specifically around like unlocking your travel funds and being able to like use your bills and your expenses to fund your travel. And because I realize that a lot of the things people talk about is, I have the money, but I'm not saving it, or I don't have the additional money, so I don't believe I can travel, right? So what I found is leveraging your expenses and using methods like points and those type of things help you to be able to use rewards in order to travel if you don't have the funds, but also be able to automate some of your savings so that you don't have to think about it, but then miraculously you have money for a flight. So what are some of the things that you do in order to be able to have the money to travel? Like,
I plan ahead of time. If I'm going to, like in August, I have a trip to Zambia, a 7-day trip, and I began planning for it in January. So first things, if you say you're coming to Uganda, it's all going to Jamaica or France. I think one thing which keeps fluctuating are the air tickets. Usually they get more expensive as the days draw closer. So usually I book my flight. I was in Zanzibar 2 months ago, and because I had booked my flight in January, I got it at half the price. Other people were getting it who were traveling who got it like a week before I did. Some even failed because most crafts were sold out. So I think that is very important. Booking off some costs. Then also, when you book off some costs, it's important to intentionally prioritize travel. I believe very many people would spend, let's say, $100 a night in a bar, drinking, having a good time. But you see, if you go every week, you go to the bar and spend $100. That means a month, that is $400. That means in 4 months, that is enough money. In 6 months, that is enough money for a good African safari.
yeah.
So let me go to the club every week, spend $100, and you will not. And then they'll see you on a trip and they'll say, "Oh my God, you're so rich."
Right.
And
Yeah.
then you spend the same
Like, no,
amount
I'm
of
not. I'm not.
Yeah. So I think being very intentional, I'm very intentional with my costs. I don't spend so much. I actually live a very, can I say, frugal life, but a very minimalistic life. Like I'm not someone who will buy a new pair of shoes every month. I've had one handbag for the last 3 years, and I invest in something high quality, so I don't have to buy so much. So many watches, so many shoes. You know, I don't invest so much in that. So I usually just invest in either I usually save for investment or save for travel. So I put a portion for investment, like buying land, the wellness
Mhm.
retreat I'm going to build, and then the rest is for travel. So I always ensure that every 6 months I have a trip planned out. It's going here, how much, and I pick a portion of what I earn. And the funny thing is, after you have drawn the plan that you need maybe $6,000, it will come. You say,
Mhm.
okay, I'll need it to maybe I'll use it next year. If you start saving, even if it's $100 per week, it will pile up so fast. You'll be like, wow, I didn't think it was this.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just about being financially informed and cautious.
I think,
Yeah.
making saving for travel a part of the culture of your life helps make it so much more
Yes.
accessible. I think a lot of people think about travel as something over here, right? And it's like, okay, I got all of my expenses and all the things I'm doing, and then over here is travel. And I'm like, you have to bring it over here. Like, it is literally on the list of the things, and it is at closer to the top, right? And so for me, similar to you, like, I don't spend hair. I mean, I don't spend money on hair. I don't spend money on shoes. I don't spend money on clothes. Like, I haven't had nails and toes done in it's only been a year because I had my 40th birthday last year. But before that, it just was like, no, not ever. Like, not ever am I spending money on this, because all of those coins are going to my
How do
ability to
you
take.
look? You had your
What?
40th birthday? You
Yes.
look so young. No way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I'm actually 41 now.
It's not possible.
Thank you. It's funny because my mom if my mom goes out with me, they card her. Like, so they're like, "Can we have your ID?" I'm like, "This is my mother." Like, so I'm like, if I can look like her at 57, 58, 59, I'm gonna be all right. Okay. Like,
That
so
is
yes, we try to
ridiculous.
keep a skincare regimen going in order to stay, spry in the face. So yeah, but I'm just like, I tell people, I'm like, you have to use your main money to save for travel, not your leftover money. Because if you use your
Yes.
leftover money, it will never happen. But you have to make it a part of a main part of your budget. And then automate as much as possible so you don't have to think about it, to your point, so that you just look up in 6 months, you like, oh, I got $1,500 or $2,000, and you didn't have to think about it. There was something that you were talking about that I wanted to call out, but I can't remember now for some reason. I cannot remember what it was. Well, anywho,
Uh-oh.
um, so I will say, for you, really have enjoyed this because it's so good to hear a perspective other than one from the States, right? It's good to know that, there are moms abroad who are doing these similar things, right? Prioritizing your self-care, doing the things you love to do, like taking and enjoying your free time. Like, this is very important.
Disclaimer that even as I do this, there's still a lot of backlash from the community, you know. And I have a mentor who I was talking to, and she's now her firstborn is 23, I think, done with college and everything, and her youngest, I think, he's 10. So she told me that, Lynett, because she travels a lot, and I asked her, how do you leave the children, the husband? Because our society is very masculine or
Mm-hmm.
patriarchal, that if a woman leaves her husband at home to go for a trip, oh my God, some
Mm-hmm.
societies will even call a family meeting. Like, how do you do that?
Yes.
If your husband, by like for any reason, cheats on you, they will say, oh, you're always traveling, you left him at home alone.
Is
And
that, girl? Don't get me started.
so it's a very tricky thing. I'm doing it, but like because I think I'm stubborn, but I also know it's value in the long run because at the end of the day, you only have you know.
Yes.
But it's still there. it's still there. So many people, like I said, very many women after having their child, they don't like. I have a friend who I talked to, and she had told me that the first 4 years, like she had two children. She had the second one when one was two, and she was like, the last 4 years I've not had a good night's sleep. 4 years. Because the kids have to feed at night. And I'm like, what? 4 years, no break, no full-time sleep, And I was like, wow. And so many women are facing this. And it even becomes worse when now they even have work. I have a friend who has 3 children, pregnant with a fourth, full-time employed, with a husband,
Yes.
with the 3 children. And now
Yes.
she's pregnant with a fourth. And she's
Yes.
like, Lynett, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And I'm like, wow, you need a wellness trip. You need to
Yes.
take the children off. The 3 are all, 2 are grown up and they can fend, when there's a caretaker, they can feed themselves, they can dress themselves, But very many women fail to even rediscover themselves. Because for me, I feel travel is a gateway to self-discovery.
Absolutely.
It's when I've been on the road that I've been saying, oh God, Lynett, I think we need to go back and maybe up our goals for the year from 2,000 to 6,000 or to 20,000. You can be so much. And with travel, another thing I've learned is that it humbles you, but then it also makes you appreciate what you have. Because when you go around the world, you see, wow, these people doing so much. So you get to feel like, okay, I'm not as special as I thought I was. It makes you come down to earth, but then it also makes you feel like, wow, because people have done so much big, great things, I can do more, I can be more, So I think it's a very powerful tool that many people don't know how to use it, and I feel mothers need it the most.
Absolutely. Everything Lynett said, y'all, like everything. Because listen, in order to do this, right? In order to do this, you're going to have to be comfortable with being a rebel. Like you're going to have to rebel against the norm, right? Because truthfully, and the norm, we like to look outside and say all of these things are affecting us. However, the norm is also the way you think, right? It's the way you believe you are supposed to act, the way you believe you're supposed to think, the things you believe you're supposed to do as a mother, right? And you're going to have to rebel against that, right? You're going to have to rework the wiring inside of you and get really comfortable with living in a space where the way you think, the way you act, the way you move, and the way you mother doesn't look like everybody else. And you're completely okay with that because you're mothering from your identity, right? And you're not deciding that your identity is motherhood, right? So that is the biggest piece. That's why I am a coach specifically for moms, because that part is not easy. Depending on your circle, like for instance, my mother, very supportive, my husband, supportive, my father, supportive, my friendships, even before I was a mom, have leveled up to the point where even in this stage of life, they're still very supportive of me being me here, right? However, there are a lot of moms who don't have that, right? You have people in your circle who don't want you to do this, right? Who say you shouldn't be doing it, who say, why would you do it, right? How could you spend that money, right? You have maybe a husband who isn't supportive, right? You have, a family who isn't supportive. So in order for you to do it, you're going to have to do a lot of things, right? You're going to have to rethink what their opinion means, right? You're going to have to rethink what your opinion means. You may have to find other people who will support you, right? Maybe you can't just leave him with your husband because he, but you want to leave it with a friend who is supportive of this. Creating your community, like doing this requires support. That has been the whole basis of this conversation. And so that is why I provide the service to be able to help moms overcome all the little internal obstacles as well as the external, obstacles that may be stopping you from truly living out your identity, truly living your desires, and taking and enjoying your free time through the kid-free vacations that you want to take. So I completely agree. Like, you know, you're going to be a unique representation of motherhood. And I'm very proud of you, like over there being that beacon of hope for the moms in Uganda. Like, you know, this is the thing that you can be doing. But, you know, I think it's so important to spread this word, right? It's so important for us to, you know, talk our talk to the other moms and support them and encourage them, and actually give them the tools and point them to the resources that will help them along on this journey. So I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me. Let people know like where they can find you.
I wanted to mention just a little before I share what you. I also think it's very paramount that you're doing this, sharing the kid-free vacations, because in our Black communities, doing this is not highly celebrated. You know, it is celebrated when a white lady leaves a child with a nanny and goes on a trip. She needs to rest, she needs to relax. But we feel like we don't need to rest. We have not been given the permission to relax.
Yes.
And it's very important for you to get that permission. You know,
yes.
If the partner doesn't understand it, try to sensitize them about the importance of you relaxing. You know, you remember that you can only be your best to your children if you are your best to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's very important. That's my final word.
Absolutely, and I'll add to that. You also can only be the best to your husband when you're also the best to yourself. So that's something that he needs to know. If he wants the best, he's gonna have to allow you to get away. Okay.
You can reach me on my Instagram handle, which is Lynett Travel. You can check out my website. I have a website for Girls Travel Africa. Then I have To Get There Freak. But then also you can share my WhatsApp number where people can reach out to me in case of any questions, any guidance on tips and ideas of how to travel. Because I know as a mother you're juggling life. Even before you go on the vacation, you need to ensure that the kids are safe if you're leaving them behind. Husband is okay. Everything, fridge is well stocked, you know. But then you still have to make sure that your trip is well planned and it's going to be fun. So definitely getting a good service provider makes it all much easy. Getting friends to travel with makes it all much cheaper. Yeah. So reach out to me at Girls Travel Africa. There's an Instagram page, there's a website, there's info at Girls Travel Africa, which is the email address, or my personal email address, which can be shared.
I love it. Y'all, listen, I always say that some of the most transformative trips I have taken have been to the continent. Ghana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, right? Like these trips left significant marks in my life. Like, I mean, South Africa is where I met my husband, right? Significant shift in my life. So I am a huge evangelist, especially for Black and brown people, to travel to Africa, because there's so much there that you don't know. There's so much there. There is a narrative that we have been given that is inaccurate. There is so much there that we don't know about. And it's almost like there's a piece of you there that's been missing. So make sure you all link up with Lynett at Girls Travel Africa. I also am as well, because I'm sure that I would, you know, really like to. I've actually never done a wellness trip. But I would love to do that in some of the places, especially Victoria Falls. So we shall talk more about that as well. You all make sure that you like this video. If you are a mother who is interested in being somebody and somebody's mama, make sure you subscribe to this channel and stick around for more videos on kid-free vacations. We will talk to you soon. Bye.